Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. How many times have you felt overwhelmed by your own mind? How often have you let anxious thoughts control your decisions, your mood, and your confidence? We've all been there, trapped in a cycle of overthinking, feeling like we're at the mercy of our own thoughts. But here's the truth. You are not your thoughts. The fears, doubts, and worries running through your mind, they are not reality. They are mental noise. And today, I'm going to show you how to break free from that noise. You have the power to separate yourself from your thoughts, to stop letting them control you, and to reclaim your inner peace. Let's get into it. Anxiety is not born from the world around you. It's created in your mind. It's not the events themselves that cause distress, it's the interpretation of those events. Two people can experience the same situation, yet one walks away unbothered while the other is consumed by fear. The difference is not in the situation, it's in the mindset. Anxiety is not a product of reality, it's a product of perception. Until you understand this, you will remain a prisoner to fear. The mind has a way of distorting reality. It takes a single event and twists it into a catastrophic outcome. A missed call becomes the beginning of rejection. A delay at work becomes the start of failure. A negative comment becomes proof that you are not enough. This is how anxiety operates. It hijacks your mind and convinces you that the worst is inevitable. But it's not the event that causes the suffering. It's the story you attach to it. You are not anxious because life is difficult. You are anxious because you have allowed your mind to create a version of reality that is rooted in fear. The truth is, life is neutral. Situations are neither good nor bad, they simply are. The mind assigns meaning, and when the mind leans toward fear, even the simplest moments become a threat. The problem is not the external world, it's the lens through which you view it. Consider how often you have suffered over things that never happened. How many nights have you lost sleep over imagined disasters? How many moments have you wasted preparing for outcomes that never arrived? Your mind has built a habit of anticipating the worst, and the more you indulge this habit, the stronger it becomes. The mind learns through repetition. If you constantly imagine failure, your mind will default to that pattern. If you constantly expect rejection, you will approach life with guarded hesitation. Anxiety is not a reflection of reality, it's a learned response. Your mind is trying to protect you. Anxiety is rooted in the instinct for survival. The brain is wired to anticipate threats, to identify danger before it happens. This is useful when you're facing actual danger, but in modern life the threats are rarely life-threatening. The mind, however, has not adjusted. It responds to criticism, failure, and uncertainty as if they are physical threats. It triggers the same fight-or-flight response, increased heart rate, rapid breathing, tense muscles, even when there is no real danger. Your body is preparing to survive a threat that does not exist. This is why anxiety feels so overwhelming. Your mind has convinced your body that you are under attack. But the attack is not real, it's a projection of your thoughts. The mind generates fear and the body responds as if that fear is real. This creates a vicious cycle. You feel physical symptoms of anxiety, which reinforces the belief that you are in danger, which intensifies the fear. Until you break this cycle, anxiety will control you. To break free from anxiety, you must separate perception from reality. Most of what you fear is imagined. The mind exaggerates risk and downplays your ability to handle it. You anticipate failure because your mind is trying to protect you from disappointment. But this protection is a cage. It limits your potential. It keeps you from stepping into the unknown. The only way to weaken anxiety's grip is to stop believing the stories your mind creates. When you feel anxiety rising, pause. Ask yourself, is this fear rooted in reality, or is it a projection of my mind? Have I already failed, or am I just afraid of failing? Has this disaster already happened, or am I suffering over a possibility? The answer is almost always the same. You are reacting to a future that hasn't happened yet. Anxiety convinces you that anticipating pain will protect you from it, but it only makes you suffer twice. You have to take control of the story you tell yourself. The mind will generate fear automatically. That's its job. But you have the power to choose which thoughts you engage with. Just because a fearful thought arises doesn't mean you have to follow it. You don't have to let it control you. You can observe it and let it pass. This is the difference between living with anxiety and being controlled by it. Anxiety may always whisper in the background, but you don't have to listen. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty. The mind wants to know how things will turn out. It craves guarantees. But life offers none. No one can promise that you will succeed, that you won't face loss, that you won't encounter failure. But here's the truth. You don't need certainty to move forward. You don't need to know how things will end to take the first step. Anxiety tells you that you must eliminate uncertainty to feel safe, but strength comes from moving forward despite it. You have survived every difficult moment in your life so far. You have handled loss, failure, rejection, and uncertainty, and you're still here. Anxiety tries to convince you that the next challenge will be the one that breaks you, but history proves otherwise. You have already handled more than you give yourself credit for. The mind forgets this when it's focused on fear. It highlights your weaknesses while ignoring your strength. But the fact that you have endured means you are capable. Your mind creates the illusion that you are fragile. It convinces you that discomfort is dangerous, that you cannot handle failure, that you cannot survive loss, that you will break under pressure. But discomfort is not dangerous. Failure is not the end. Loss is not permanent. You are not fragile. You have simply been conditioned to believe that you are. The mind will present fear as truth. It will tell you that you're not ready, that you will embarrass yourself, that you'll fall apart. But you've heard these stories before, and they were lies. How many times has your mind predicted disaster only for nothing to happen? How many times have you avoided action because fear convinced you that you couldn't handle it, only to realize later that you were stronger than you thought? Fear is not truth, it's speculation, and speculation is not reality. Stop treating fear as fact. Stop letting anxiety dictate your decisions. If you wait for the fear to disappear, you will wait forever. Fear will always be there, but it doesn't have to control you. The presence of anxiety does not mean you are weak. It means you are stepping outside of your comfort zone. Growth and discomfort are intertwined. If you want to build strength, you have to be willing to feel uncomfortable. You cannot outrun anxiety, but you can outgrow it. You will never eliminate fear completely, but you can stop allowing it to define you. Anxiety is a mental habit, and like any habit, it can be unlearned. Every time you act despite fear, you weaken its grip. Every time you detach from anxious thoughts, you rewire your mind. Confidence is not born from comfort. It's built through exposure to discomfort. The more you face your fear, the more you teach your mind that you are not in danger. You are not fragile. You are not weak. You are not a prisoner of your thoughts. Anxiety is not rooted in reality, it's rooted in perception. Change the way you see the world, and you will change the way you feel within it. Anxiety will try to pull you toward fear, but you don't have to follow. You have the power to stand firm, to face uncertainty with strength, and to reclaim control over your mind. The path to peace is not in controlling the world, it's in mastering your response to it. You don't need to eliminate fear to find peace. You need to stop obeying it. You are not at the mercy of anxiety. It may speak, but you get to decide whether you listen. Your mind will create fear, but you get to decide how you respond. The fear may linger, but you are stronger. You are not a prisoner of anxiety. You are the master of your mind. Control is an illusion. You spend your life trying to control outcomes, trying to predict how things will unfold, trying to ensure that life bends to your will. But the harder you cling to control, the more powerless you feel. Anxiety thrives in this gap, the space between what you want to control and what you can't. It's the friction between effort and uncertainty that creates inner chaos. The mind becomes consumed with questions. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if everything falls apart? Anxiety feeds on these questions because they have no clear answers. And so, the mind loops, searching for control in a world that was never meant to be controlled. Peace begins when you recognize the truth. You control very little in life. You don't control the outcome of your efforts. You don't control how others respond to you. You don't control the circumstances that unfold around you. What you control is far smaller than you imagine. But within that small space, within your own mind, your own effort, your own response lies your power. Anxiety weakens when you shift your focus from controlling the uncontrollable to mastering yourself. The problem isn't that life is unpredictable. The problem is that you expect it to be otherwise. Most of what you worry about is beyond your control. You worry about the weather, about the economy, about how others perceive you, about what might happen tomorrow. But none of that is in your hands. You can't change how others feel about you. You can't prevent setbacks from happening. You can't dictate how life unfolds, but you can control how you meet each moment. You can control how you respond to failure, how you handle rejection, how you interpret uncertainty. The world will do what it will. Your job is to decide how you will meet it. Anxiety is born from trying to control too much. You believe that if you can just plan enough, anticipate enough, calculate enough, you can prevent things from going wrong. But this is a lie. You can't plan for everything. You can't account for every possibility. And so the mind becomes trapped, spinning through scenarios, preparing for disasters, trying to shield itself from uncertainty. But no amount of preparation will make life predictable. Control is not protection, it's a burden. And the more you try to control life, the heavier that burden becomes. True peace comes from surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means giving up, but the kind of surrender that means letting go of what isn't yours to carry. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you free yourself from the weight of expectation. You release the need to predict the future. You stop tying your self-worth to external results. This is where strength is built, not from controlling life, but from mastering your response to it. Focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your attitude. That's it. Everything else, the outcome, the reaction, the circumstances, is beyond you. You can give your best effort, but you cannot force success. You can speak with honesty, but you cannot control whether others understand you. You can pursue your goals, but you cannot dictate how quickly they unfold. You can control the process, but never the outcome. Anxiety thrives when you try to do both. Think about how much energy you waste trying to control things you can't. You worry about how others see you. You replay conversations in your mind, searching for flaws. You anticipate rejection, thinking that by expecting it, you'll soften the blow. But none of this protects you, it only exhausts you. You are carrying burdens that were never yours to bear. What others think of you is not your responsibility. How others respond to you is not your business. Your business is to act with integrity, to speak with clarity, to live with courage, and then let go of the rest. When you focus on what you can control, you simplify life, you strip away the noise. You stop chasing validation, you stop trying to be perfect, you stop trying to shape the outcome. This is not weakness, this is strength. Because it takes courage to release control. It takes strength to accept that you cannot dictate how life unfolds. The weak seek control, the strong seek mastery. Mastery over their thoughts, mastery over their emotions, mastery over their response to life. You will fail, you will face setbacks, you will experience loss. This is not failure, this is life. The mind resists this truth because it craves certainty, it wants guarantees. It wants to know that if you work hard enough, plan carefully enough, you can avoid pain. But this is not how life works. Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Suffering comes from attachment to control. Suffering comes from resisting what you cannot change. When you release control, you release suffering. Stop trying to control outcomes, start controlling your response. You cannot prevent failure, but you can control how you meet it. You cannot stop others from rejecting you, but you can control how you interpret that rejection. You cannot guarantee success, but you can control how you show up each day. Focus on effort, not outcome. Focus on process, not results. Focus on how you respond, not what happens next. This is where your power lies. Fear weakens when you shift your focus inward. The mind generates anxiety when it's focused on the future, on outcomes, on uncertainty, on what might go wrong. But when you bring your focus back to the present, to your breath, to your actions, to your thoughts, anxiety loses its grip. Fear lives in the future, strength lives in the present. Anxiety tells you to fear the unknown, strength tells you to face it. You don't need to control life to find peace, you need to control yourself. You don't need to eliminate uncertainty, you need to face it. Anxiety tells you that peace will come when you gain control, but peace comes when you stop trying. It's not about controlling more, it's about needing less control. Let go of the outcome. Let go of the need to predict the future. Let go of the need for certainty. Focus on what's in front of you. Do the next right thing. Take the next right step and release the rest. Life is unpredictable. People will misunderstand you. Opportunities will slip away. Failures will happen. Loss is inevitable. You cannot prevent these things, but you can control how you meet them. You can meet them with grace or with bitterness, with acceptance or with resistance, with strength or with fear. This is the choice you face every day, and this is the foundation of peace. Knowing that you don't control life, you control your response to it. The most powerful person is not the one who controls the world, it's the one who controls themselves. The one who stands calm in the middle of chaos. The one who faces rejection without collapsing. The one who meets failure without losing resolve. This is strength, not control over life, but control over self. The world will move as it will. People will behave as they choose. Circumstances will unfold as they may. You cannot change this, but you can control your effort, your thoughts, your response. This is where peace is found, not in controlling the storm, but in mastering yourself within it. Anxiety will always try to pull you toward control. It will tell you that you need to predict, prepare, manage, and shape every outcome. But this is a losing battle. The need for control is the source of suffering. The ability to let go is the source of peace. When you release control, you release anxiety. When you surrender the need to dictate outcomes, you find strength in facing them as they come. Stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Start focusing on what's in your hands. Master yourself and you will master life. The important thing is, accept discomfort instead of running from it. Discomfort is not your enemy. You have been conditioned to believe that the goal of life is to seek comfort, to avoid pain, to escape discomfort at all costs. But this belief is a trap. The more you chase comfort, the more anxious you feel. Anxiety grows when you resist what you cannot change. Fear thrives when you run from discomfort instead of facing it. Strength comes not from escaping discomfort, but from accepting it. Most people live their lives running from discomfort. They avoid hard conversations. They stay in jobs that drain them. They cling to relationships that no longer serve them. They silence their voice to avoid conflict. They distract themselves with entertainment, with food, with social media, anything to avoid feeling uncomfortable. But this avoidance comes at a cost. When you run from discomfort, you shrink. You become smaller. Your mind becomes fragile. Your confidence erodes, because the more you avoid discomfort, the more control it has over you. True strength is not the absence of discomfort. It's the ability to face it. You cannot grow without discomfort. Growth requires struggle. It requires effort. It requires stepping into situations where you are not certain of the outcome. You will feel awkward. You will feel exposed. You will feel vulnerable. But this is the price of strength. You cannot build resilience in comfort. You cannot develop courage without fear. You cannot create strength without resistance. Discomfort is not the problem. Your relationship to discomfort is the problem. You've been taught that feeling uncomfortable means something is wrong. That if you feel anxious, you should retreat. That if you feel fear, you should stop. That if you feel uncertain, you should wait. But this is a lie. Discomfort is not a warning sign. It's a doorway. On the other side of discomfort is growth. On the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of resistance is strength. Running from discomfort, the more fragile you become. You become scared of things that shouldn't scare you. You lose faith in your ability to handle difficult moments. Your mind becomes hypersensitive to stress. Small challenges feel overwhelming because you've conditioned yourself to seek comfort at all costs. This is why so many people feel trapped. Not because life is hard, but because they've lost the ability to sit with discomfort. Freedom comes when you stop running, when you decide that you are willing to feel discomfort, when you decide that you can handle fear, rejection, failure, and uncertainty, when you stop seeking comfort and start seeking strength. This is how confidence is built, not by avoiding hard things, but by proving to yourself that you can handle them. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's knowing that you can face fear and survive. Confidence is not built in ease. It's built in discomfort. Stop trying to escape discomfort. Lean into it. Feel the fear, but act anyway. Feel the uncertainty, but take the step. Feel the awkwardness. Speak the truth. Growth is not comfortable. It's not supposed to be. The discomfort you feel is the price of becoming stronger. The resistance you face is the process of transformation. The tension you feel is the signal that you are stepping beyond your limits. You don't need to eliminate discomfort to find peace. You need to face it. You don't need to wait until you feel confident. You need to act despite the fear. You don't need to have all the answers. You need to be willing to figure them out along the way. Discomfort will not destroy you, it will shape you. Fear will not weaken you, it will strengthen you if you face it. Avoidance is weakness, acceptance is strength. The mind resists discomfort because it sees it as a threat. It believes that if you feel fear, something must be wrong. But fear is not danger. It's growth. Your mind is wired to protect you, to keep you safe. But safety is not strength. Safety is stagnation. If you let your mind guide you toward safety, you will stay stuck. You will avoid challenges. You will shrink from opportunities. You will sabotage your own success. Because comfort feels safe, but comfort is the enemy of strength. Strength comes from rewriting this story. From deciding that discomfort is not a threat, it's a teacher. That fear is not a warning, it's an invitation. that anxiety is not a sign that you're failing, it's a sign that you're growing. When you feel discomfort, it means you're stepping into new territory. It means you're expanding. It means you're breaking through old limits. Discomfort is not a wall, it's a doorway, and on the other side of that doorway is freedom. Most people live their lives avoiding discomfort, and so they stay small. They never speak up because they fear conflict. They never pursue their dreams because they fear failure. They never take chances because they fear rejection. But the people who rise, the people who succeed, are not the ones who feel less fear. They are the ones who face it. They are the ones who feel discomfort and step forward anyway. They are the ones who accept that growth is uncomfortable and choose growth over comfort. Discomfort is the price of strength. You want to be more confident, but you don't want to face the awkwardness of speaking up. You want to be more resilient, but you don't want to face failure. You want to be courageous, but you don't want to feel afraid. You cannot have strength without discomfort. You cannot grow without struggle. You cannot find confidence without facing fear. This is the truth that most people avoid. This is why most people stay stuck. Stop searching for comfort, start seeking strength. Let yourself feel the discomfort. Let yourself face the fear. Let yourself experience the awkwardness, the tension, the uncertainty. This is how you grow. Stop trying to escape. Stop trying to eliminate discomfort. Stop waiting until you feel ready. You will never feel ready. Confidence comes after action, not before it. Strength comes after facing discomfort, not before it. What are you running from? What are you avoiding? What fear have you let control you? You think that avoiding discomfort protects you, but it doesn't. It weakens you. Every time you avoid you teach yourself that you are not strong enough to handle it. Every time you run from fear, you teach yourself that you cannot face it. This is why anxiety grows, because you have conditioned yourself to believe that discomfort is dangerous. But discomfort is not dangerous, it is the path. The discomfort of rejection is the path to confidence. The discomfort of failure is the path to mastery. The discomfort of uncertainty is the path to strength. There is no shortcut, there is no easy way, there is no path to strength without walking through discomfort. But when you stop running when you face discomfort and realize you can handle it, you become unshakable. Fear loses its power when you face it. Anxiety loses its grip when you lean into it. Strength is not the absence of discomfort, it's the willingness to face it. The more you face discomfort, the stronger you become. The more you accept fear, the freer you become. You don't need to eliminate discomfort to find peace. You need to stop fearing it. Strength is built in the fire of discomfort. Courage is forged in the presence of fear. Confidence is created by standing in discomfort without running. You cannot escape discomfort, but you can grow through it. You cannot avoid fear, but you can face it. You cannot control life, but you can control how you respond. The path to strength is not in avoiding discomfort, it's in mastering it. Lean into it, face it, embrace it, and you will find that discomfort is not your enemy. It is the birthplace of strength. You are not your thoughts. The mind has a tendency to produce endless streams of thoughts, worries about the future, regrets about the past, doubts about your abilities. But none of that defines who you are. Your thoughts are like passing clouds. They appear, drift across your mind, and eventually fade away. But you are not the clouds. You are the sky. The problem is that most people identify so closely with their thoughts that they start believing every fearful or negative thought as truth. When you think, "I'm not good enough," or "I'm going to fail," you accept it as reality rather than recognizing it as just a passing idea. The truth is that thoughts are not facts. They are mental constructs shaped by your experiences, fears, and perceptions, not by reality itself. When you realize this, you create distance between yourself and your thoughts, and that distance is where peace lives. Anxiety thrives when you mistake your thoughts for truth. When you give weight to every fearful projection or every negative assumption, you feed the cycle of anxiety. The mind becomes a battlefield, and you feel like you're losing a fight you can't escape. But the fight itself is an illusion. You don't need to battle your thoughts. You need to stop giving them control. You are not anxious because of your circumstances. You are anxious because you have allowed your mind to attach itself to negative patterns of thinking. Imagine standing by a river, watching leaves float downstream. If you reach out and grab a leaf, you become connected to it. If the leaf is rotten or ugly, you feel disgusted or distressed by it. But if you simply observe the leaves without trying to hold on to them, they float past without affecting you. Your thoughts are the leaves. Let them float by. Don't reach for them. Don't identify with them. Just let them pass. It's easy to feel like you are your thoughts because they come from inside you, but thoughts are not who you are. They are simply mental noise produced by the mind. If you sit quietly and observe your thoughts without reacting to them, you'll notice that they lose power. The mind only controls you when you engage with it, but when you become the observer, when you detach from the stream of thoughts, you reclaim your inner stability. You don't need to control your thoughts to find peace. You need to stop letting them define you. Your mind might tell you that you're not capable, that you're unworthy, that you'll fail, but you don't have to accept any of it. You are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness behind it. When you start observing your thoughts rather than believing them, you gain power over them. If you think, "I'm going to fail," you can respond with, "That's just a thought. It doesn't mean it's true." If you think, "I'm not good enough," you can say, "That's just a pattern of thinking. It's not reality." Separating yourself from your thoughts gives you the power to choose your response rather than being dragged around by every mental impulse. Most people never learn this skill. They go through life reacting to every fearful or anxious thought as though it's a fact. They feel like victims of their own mind. But you don't have to live that way. You don't have to be a slave to your thoughts. Anxiety loses its grip when you stop personalizing it. If you feel anxious and you say, "I am anxious," you're reinforcing the idea that anxiety is part of your identity. But if you say, "I'm experiencing anxious thoughts," you create separation. You shift from identifying with anxiety to observing it. And when you observe it, you stop feeding it power. You become the watcher rather than the victim. Your thoughts are not you. They are temporary patterns of the mind. The storm may rage, but you are not the storm. You are the sky behind it. When you learn to sit with discomfort rather than react to it, you weaken its hold over you. The goal is not to stop thoughts altogether. That's impossible. The goal is to change how you relate to them. If a fearful thought arises, let it pass without attaching to it. If a doubt appears, let it float by without engaging with it. Thoughts have no power on their own. They only have the power you give them. If you step back and observe them as separate from yourself, they lose their grip. Most people feel powerless because they don't realize they have this choice. They think they are their thoughts, so they react to every fear and worry as if it's real. But when you understand that you are not your thoughts, you regain control. You become the one who decides what matters and what doesn't. You don't have to chase down every negative thought or respond to every anxious impulse. You can let them pass. You can stand still while the storm rages and know that you are untouched by it. This mindset is what separates peace from chaos. Chaos comes from identifying with every thought that crosses your mind. Peace comes from observing those thoughts without attaching to them. When you stop letting your mind define your reality, you take back your power. You no longer need to silence your thoughts or eliminate fear. You only need to stop believing that those thoughts are you. If a thought says, "You're not good enough," you can smile and say, "Interesting, but not true." If a thought says, "You'll never succeed," you can say, "That's just noise, I don't have to listen to it." This detachment is freedom. Most people try to fight their mind, but the battle ends when you stop engaging. When you realize that you are not your thoughts, you step into a place of calm and strength that cannot be shaken. Anxiety thrives on identification. It needs you to believe that you are your fear, that you are your self-doubt. But when you stop believing those thoughts, the fear loses its grip. Thoughts will always come. You can't stop them, but you can decide not to engage with them. The mind's power comes from your attention. When you stop giving attention to negative thoughts, they fade. They become background noise rather than defining forces in your life. You have the power to step back and observe your thoughts without reacting. That space between you and your thoughts is where strength is built. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that watches them, and when you embrace that awareness, you reclaim your peace. Stop predicting failure before it happens. The mind has a way of creating problems that don't exist. It projects fear into the future and convinces you that disaster is inevitable. But the future is not real. It's a mental construct shaped by your own thoughts. When you predict failure, you are not reacting to reality. You are reacting to a false idea created by your own mind. And yet most people live their lives as if the worst outcome is already decided. They hesitate to take action because they believe failure is guaranteed. They avoid opportunities because they assume they'll fall short. They shrink back from life because they've convinced themselves that disappointment is inevitable. But failure is not inevitable. The future is unwritten. You are not a fortune teller. You cannot know how things will unfold, no matter how much your mind tries to convince you otherwise. Predicting failure is a form of self-sabotage. It's the mind's way of protecting you from discomfort, from the vulnerability that comes with trying and risking defeat. But that protection comes at a cost. It traps you in a cycle of fear and hesitation. When you assume failure, you act as though it's already true. You hesitate, you shrink, you don't give your full effort because part of you has already accepted defeat. And that hesitation creates the very failure you feared. The mind's prediction becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, not because the outcome was destined, but because you approached it with a defeated mindset. The problem isn't that you will fail. The problem is that you are mentally living in failure before it even happens. You've already given up in your mind, so the outcome reflects that internal surrender. But the truth is, failure is not written in stone. The future is open. You have more control than you think. But to take advantage of that control, you have to stop letting your mind create imaginary losses. Stop deciding the outcome before you've even begun. Stop rehearsing defeat in your head. Stop walking into situations expecting to lose. Confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to let fear dictate your reality. When you predict failure, you give fear permission to lead. You tell yourself that it's not even worth trying because you assume the outcome is already set. But it's not. The mind is a master of deception. It convinces you that negative outcomes are inevitable, that the odds are stacked against you, that you're not prepared enough, strong enough, or talented enough to succeed. But these thoughts are not truth. They are noise. And if you let that noise control you, you'll never discover what you're actually capable of. The mind projects failure as a way of protecting you from pain. It's easier to assume you'll lose than to give your all and face disappointment. But that safety comes at a cost. You never experience your full strength. You never see what's possible. You shrink your life down to the size of your fears. The only way to break that cycle is to stop listening to the mind's predictions. Stop believing that you can know the outcome before it happens. Stop assuming that a setback is permanent or that a challenge is impossible. The mind is not an oracle. It does not know the future. You create your future through your choices, your effort, and your willingness to act despite uncertainty. Failure is not the default setting. It's only one of many possibilities. But when you focus on failure, you unconsciously steer toward it. When you expect defeat, you hold back, you hesitate, you self-sabotage, and that hesitation is what makes failure more likely. The mind tricks you into thinking you are protecting yourself, but really you are setting yourself up for defeat. The mind creates stories. It projects fear into the future and makes you feel like those fearful outcomes are real. But they're not. They are stories, nothing more. And you don't have to believe them. Most people live trapped inside those stories. They hesitate to pursue a goal because they see themselves failing before they even begin. They turn down opportunities because they fear embarrassment or rejection. They don't speak up because they assume they'll be ignored. But none of those outcomes are real. They are imagined, yet the mind treats them as truth. The mind creates a false reality and then makes you live inside it. The only way to escape is to stop believing the stories. Stop assuming that failure is the most likely outcome. Stop preparing for disappointment before you've even started. Stop building walls around your potential because you fear what's on the other side. The truth is, you don't know what's going to happen. And that's not a weakness, that's freedom. If you don't know the future, that means every possibility is still open to you. It means success is just as possible as failure. It means you have the power to shape the outcome through your actions. But you can't access that power if you've already decided you're going to fail. Most people fail not because they weren't capable, but because they approached the situation with a defeated mindset. They pulled back instead of leaning in. They gave 70% instead of 100% because they didn't believe it was worth the effort. And that's why they lost. Not because they couldn't succeed, but because they mentally gave up before the outcome was even decided. The mind will always offer you an escape. It will always tell you it's safer not to try, that you're not ready yet, that you're not good enough, that it's better to protect yourself from embarrassment than to risk it all and come up short. But that voice is not your friend. That voice is fear disguising itself as protection. The greatest risk is not trying and failing. The greatest risk is never discovering what you're capable of because you are too afraid to try. Failure is not the enemy. Fear is. And fear wins when you let it dictate your expectations. Fear wins when you accept failure as inevitable. Fear wins when you stop trying because you've already convinced yourself it's pointless. The only way to defeat fear is to stop predicting failure. Stop assuming the worst. Stop letting your mind create false barriers between you and success. You don't know how things will turn out, so why assume the worst? Why give failure more power than it deserves? Why sabotage yourself before the game has even started? Strength comes from the willingness to face uncertainty without retreating. Confidence comes from walking toward the unknown with open hands instead of clenched fists. You don't have to know the outcome to take the next step. You don't have to feel certain to keep moving forward. Fear will always whisper that you're not enough, that you're not ready, that you're going to fail. But fear doesn't know the future. Fear is not truth, it's noise. And you don't have to listen to it. You don't have to predict failure. You only have to give yourself permission to try. The mind will tell you that success is unlikely, but it doesn't know that. The mind will tell you that you'll embarrass yourself, but it doesn't know that. The mind will tell you that you're not capable, but it doesn't know that. Only action reveals the truth. Only effort shows you what's possible. The future is not written. You are writing it with every step you take. Stop predicting failure. Stop living inside imagined defeat. Stop giving up before you've begun. The only thing standing between you and success is your willingness to try without knowing the outcome. Uncertainty is not your enemy, it's your opportunity. Step into it. Peace comes from mastering fear, not eliminating it. Most people think peace means the absence of fear, that if they could somehow remove fear from their lives, they would finally feel calm and secure. But fear is not something that can be eliminated. It's a natural part of the human experience. The goal is not to erase fear, the goal is to master it. Mastery means understanding fear, recognizing its patterns, and learning how to move forward despite it. Peace does not come from living without fear. It comes from refusing to let fear control you. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid fear, running from it, hiding from it, or numbing themselves to it. They think that if they could just find the right circumstances, the right job, the right relationship, the right level of security, they could finally stop feeling afraid. But that's an illusion. Fear doesn't come from external circumstances. It comes from within. And because it comes from within, no change in circumstances will ever make it go away. You can't outrun your mind. You can't hide from the thoughts that haunt you. You can't find peace by avoiding fear, because avoidance gives fear more power. The more you try to avoid fear, the more it controls you. The more you shrink back from life to avoid discomfort, the more you become a prisoner to that discomfort. Peace comes not from avoidance, but from confrontation. You have to face fear. You have to stand in its presence and refuse to let it dictate your actions. That is mastery. Mastery is not about feeling fearless. It's about acting with courage, even when you feel afraid. Most people think bravery means the absence of fear, but true bravery is acting in the face of fear. It's doing what needs to be done, even when your hands are shaking and your heart is racing. It's standing tall, even when every fiber of your being is telling you to retreat. Fear will always be present. It will show up when you step outside your comfort zone. It will appear when you take risks, when you pursue something meaningful, when you care deeply about the outcome. Fear is not the problem. Your relationship with fear is the problem. If you see fear as a sign to stop, you will live a small life. If you see fear as an enemy to be destroyed, you will waste your energy fighting a battle that cannot be won. But if you see fear as a natural response, as noise that can be acknowledged but not followed, you take away its power. Fear is not a sign that you are weak. It is a sign that you are stepping into something meaningful. Fear only shows up when you are on the edge of growth. It's a signal that you are moving into new territory. It's proof that you are alive. The absence of fear is not peace, it's emptiness. If you feel nothing, it's because you're not trying. You're not risking. You're not reaching beyond your current limits. If you don't feel fear, it's because you are living too far below your potential. Fear is not the problem. Fear is evidence that you are expanding. Mastery is about learning how to coexist with fear without letting it take control. You don't need fear to disappear. You need to stop letting it make your decisions. You need to learn how to hear the noise of fear without obeying it. Fear will tell you to stop. Keep going. Fear will tell you that you're not ready. Take the step anyway. Fear will tell you that you're going to fail. Try anyway. Fear will try to shrink you, to keep you small, to convince you that you are not enough. But fear is a liar. It projects imagined outcomes onto the future and convinces you that those outcomes are already true. Fear creates stories about rejection, about failure, about embarrassment, and then it makes you live as though those stories are real. But they are not real. They are mental constructs. The future is not set. Fear is not prophecy. Fear creates an illusion of certainty, convincing you that failure is inevitable. But it's not inevitable. Fear is just one possible outcome, and most of the time, it's not even the most likely one. The future is not written. The only thing that determines the outcome is your willingness to keep going despite the noise in your head. Fear thrives on hesitation. It grows stronger when you hesitate, when you shrink back, when you let doubt creep in. But when you take action, even small action, fear begins to lose its hold. Courage is not the absence of fear. It's action in spite of fear. Confidence doesn't come from waiting for fear to go away. It comes from acting while fear is present. Fear loses its power when you stop letting it stop you. Most people live under the false belief that they need to feel confident before they act. They think that once the fear is gone, then they'll finally be ready to move forward. But that moment never comes. Fear doesn't leave. You have to move through it. You don't feel confident and then act. You act, and that creates confidence. Confidence is the reward for action, not the requirement for it. Fear is a test. It will try to convince you that you are not ready, that you're not strong enough, that you'll fail. But fear is not truth. It's a mental reflex, and you can choose to override it. When you stop believing fear's stories, you reclaim your power. When you stop treating fear as a command, you become unstoppable. Fear will still be there, but it will no longer control you. Most people wait for fear to disappear before they act, but that's why they stay stuck. The only way to master fear is to move forward while it's present. Mastery is not about eliminating fear, it's about becoming so familiar with it that it no longer controls you. It's about learning how to hear the noise without obeying it. Fear will never disappear, but it doesn't have to stop you. Strength comes from walking forward while fear whispers in your ear. Power comes from choosing courage over comfort. Growth comes from stepping into the unknown, even when your mind is screaming at you to retreat. Fear is not your enemy. It's a sign that you are stepping into new territory. It's a signal that you are becoming more than you were before. Mastering fear means understanding that it's not a threat, it's a test. Fear will tell you that you can't handle it, but you can. Fear will tell you that you're not enough, but you are. Fear will tell you to stop, but you don't have to listen. Mastering fear is about proving to yourself that you are stronger than the stories in your mind. It's about showing up, even when fear is present. It's about learning that peace comes not from eliminating fear, but from choosing not to let it lead. Fear will always be there, but it doesn't have to control you. It doesn't have to make your decisions. It doesn't have to define your future. Peace comes from knowing that fear has no real power over you unless you give it permission. When you stop letting fear dictate your actions, you become, not because fear disappears, but because you no longer live according to its demands. That's peace. Peace is not the absence of fear, it's the mastery of it. It's the ability to feel fear and keep moving forward anyway. It's the strength to hear the noise and not obey it. It's the courage to face the unknown without retreating. That's peace. That's freedom. Peace is not found in the absence of fear, but in the decision to face it without letting it define you. Master fear, and you will find that peace was always within your reach.